This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together. Good evening and welcome to another edition of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV. Very glad you're able to join us for what I think, for me anyway, is going to be a very fun hour. There is no construction, there's no politics, there's no politicians in the room. Thank you. I'm sorry, those are public servants and they're very nice people. I'm going to have a little fun anyway. Let's start by a couple of reminders. Shameless plugs at the very beginning. First of all, 21 for Fun, which is our 4th annual event, is coming up on Saturday, June 17th, Student Events and Activities Center on the Indiana University East Campus. We're being sponsored by Reed Health, First Bank. It's a great way to come out. It's Father's Day weekend. Treat Dad to some blackjack, craps, roulette. It's a great time. We'll be telling you about tickets coming up real soon. You'll be able to get them through Eventbrite, 7 to 11 p.m. Mark the date. It should be absolutely wonderful. If you have been driving around saying really bad things under your breath, you know that there are orange barrels going up all over the place. A few weeks ago, we had a chance to speak with Greg Steens from the city of Richmond, Bob Warner from Wayne County, and Nathan Riggs from NDOT, and they were telling us about the construction that's going to be going on. We are going to re-air that show next week because for a number of people, maybe we did it a little bit early before the orange barrel started going up and before people started figuring out exactly how much of this was going to go on. So for those who didn't see the show or maybe need a refresher, we're going to go through a lot of the construction that's going on. So next week, we'll re-air that show, and there will be maps included letting you know approximately when some of the start and end times of some of these traffic projects are going to be going on. And then 2 weeks from now, Eric Van Vliet will be in, and I think he's planning on speaking to the new Richmond High School football coach, along with Steve Helmick, who also used to be here in Richmond. I didn't grow up here in Richmond, so a lot of people don't know about my background, but a lot of people have asked, how did you get here? What did you do? I'm one of those people who spent a lot of years doing contest speech, forensics, and I enjoyed it. That and drama. And putting this show together has really made me think about some names that maybe I haven't thought about for a number of years. Judy Findorf, Chet Brown, Tom Flanders, who was a drama coach in high school, some people who really influenced me and helped get me through some times and taught me some things and got me to a speech therapist and got rid of my lisp, which actually was very bad and helped me to really have a very nice career in both radio and now here in television. The Richmond High School speech team has had, I think, a very good year, and being an old speech person, I wanted to bring some of them in, let them talk about contest speech, forensics, let some of the students perform for you, and I'm just going to kind of sit back and remember some folks that I went to high school and college with. So we're going to start with Ronnie Wingo, who is the head coach, correct?
Yes.
Of the Richmond High School speech team. Stephanie Alexander, who is the assistant coach.
Yes.
Chithra Vendantam. Am I close?
Close enough.
Okay, close enough for government work. She'll correct me. One of the team members, Justice Lewis and Jenna Wilson. Did I get everybody close?
Close, yeah.
Close. What did I miss?
Swango.
My last name is Swango.
Swango, excuse me. What did I say?
Wingo.
I think Wingo.
Okay, Swango.
That might stick, though.
And that's why normally I read notes, and I didn't do that
That's
this
totally
time.
okay.
So first of all, thank you all very much for being here. I really have. I've lost a day kind of remembering my high school and college career. You two both performed, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Where were you from? Where did you perform?
I went to Centerville High School, so I was a part of Centerville's speech team for 3 years, and it was very influential in shaping who I became, and was a very important experience for me.
Okay. Ronnie, you?
And I recently graduated as soon as 2011 and was a competitor at Connersville High School for 4 years under the direction of coaches Chris Greason, Holly Hathaway, and Joshua Greason, who you may be familiar with the last name in town of the lawyer Wayne Greason. But I went there for 4 years at Connersville, competed on their team, and then I went to IUPUI for 1 year before transferring to Richmond and becoming a student at IU East.
That's what a lot of people don't know, actually, that there are, both on the junior college level and the four-year college level, competition can continue for students if they want, correct?
Yes, absolutely. There's actually multiple different programs, especially in Indiana. Right now you've got the Ball State Speech Program, you have the Marion College, Marion University program, along with some other programs in the state of Indiana that are really, really competitive and very established thus far. And there are some colleges here and there that some years pick it up and have more competitive teams, and then other ones that kind of fade away over time. And so, yeah, the college circuit is very big and very competitive right now. Actually, Ball State University in Muncie just hosted the National Forensic Association national tournament last year, and Chitra and I were both able to attend that last year and get some experience at seeing what it looked like on the college level and kind of helping shape our team.
How was that experience for you? What did you see a lot of difference between what you see on the high school level and what you see from the college competitors?
Surprisingly, not so much. My event is informative, and that is directly taken from the collegiate national circuit onto our state circuit. So it wasn't as different for my personal event. However, watching some of the other events, yes, there is a big difference, not only in rules, but also in the level of skill and dedication I saw. However, the high school students really are very dedicated and highly competitive. I find that speech attracts people who are already at that level of maturity. So surprisingly, not as much, no.
What brought you to the speech team? What made you decide you wanted to stand up in front of people and perform?
It's actually really weird because I grew up being pretty shy, but once I got to middle school, I was in a program called Logos, and actually so were these two. And I ended up being on the speech team for 1 year in my 8th grade year, and because I already knew people on the team from being in middle school, I got to high school already having like a group of friends to compete with.
Is that part of it, the camaraderie, the closeness that you get being in competition, getting up Saturday morning, sometimes pretty early, traveling, being with people? Is that important to you? Jenna?
Oh, yes, it's really important to me. The speech team has been a place where I've been able to fit in and just be myself and be part of a team. And I think like when you're getting up at like 4 in the morning to get on a bus to drive an hour and a half, you get pretty close, and the bus ride back, those are my favorite times, are the bus rides there and back.
The students that you have compete in a variety of events. How are the categories kind of broken down, and how many different ones?
Sure. So for those who may not know a lot about speech, there are really two distinctions that are broken up that are strictly related to speech. There's also a debate side of things, but in the speech side you really have two categories. You have the public address category and the interpretation category, and within each section there you really have a lot of variety. Specifically in public address, you've got informative speeches, you've got persuasive speeches, you have an event like discussion, which is really more of like a community table talk about important issues that plague our society, as well as we have even radio broadcasting, an event where students are given prompts and told to research news and commercial products and present those as if they're on a radio broadcast. And then on the interpretation side, we also have more acting style of events. So students either write their own scripts or they find scripts depending on what event they're in, and they compete as either a duo team or as a single competitor. And tonight, as you'll see later, we've kind of brought a mix of both of those, both public address and interpretation. So there really is an event for everyone that wants to join the speech team. There are such a plethora of events that it's really difficult to not find something that is for you.
Okay. These ladies are going to perform. You're going to perform for us twice. What's the first thing you're going to do? What category, and how did you come to it?
My first category I'm going to perform is dramatic interpretation, and my road to drama. I started out in prose in middle school, and actually nobody wanted to do drama because people think drama's scary because it's memorized, and so I volunteered to do drama, and I've liked drama ever since.
Okay. So this is a single. This is you performing multiple people?
No, I'm just one character in the script.
All right. And the name of it is?
Nice Boy by Alyssa Zacek.
And you got?
Well, I'm Martha Linwood. Oh, it's nice to meet y'all. I know you want me to talk about my son, Jackson. Jackson was always such a nice boy. It was just the two of us, but I never thought Jackson was very lonely. He did well in school and played in the band, saxophone, and he was good. Jackson always wanted to go away to school, and well, I told him I'd miss him. I thought it'd be good for him to be away. Jackson loved me. He told me so all the time. I can still feel his little arms wrapped around my neck when he'd hug me so tight. I love you, Mama. And he did. Now, I know you want me to talk about what he did, but that's not who Jackson was. I'd like to tell you about my son, not what he did. Philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "A man is what his mother makes him." A mother's nurture has the power to shape the future of her child. But what happens if, despite her best efforts, the future doesn't look so bright? Playwright Alyssa Zacek explores this concept through the eyes of Mother Martha Linwood, as she struggles with blaming herself for the incarceration of her son. Nice Boy by Alyssa Zacek. Oh, Jackson was always such a good baby. So quiet and happy. His daddy left us when he was just a few years old, but I think we did all right by ourselves. I took good care of Jackson. I just wish I could have done a better job of protecting him from the world outside our home. Children can be so cruel. They picked on him. He's been skinny and kind of sickly looking ever since he was young, but I always just thought he was so handsome, like a little Von Trapp child or something. But he was weaker than the rest of the boys in grade school and not as fast, so he became the butt of some jokes. Now, I did everything I could. I called his teachers, the principal, and the mother of every bully that I heard about. Might make that worse. You can't protect your kids from everything. But goodness knows I tried. His middle school years were rough, that's for sure. He's a little shy, so sometimes he'd come home all upset telling me that the kids at school made fun of him for liking a girl. Now, isn't that just awful? To tease a boy for having a little crush. Well, I always like to think that it helped him to know that I was always there for him, even if he didn't have any girlfriends. Oh, he had boys he was friends with, a couple of the neighborhood kids he knew, and they stuck by him. That is until they got to the high school. They all went to different schools, you see, and then they scattered around the town. Stopped seeing each other so much. And that made things hard on Jackson. Look, all I know about Jackson's time in high school was that he liked to be alone. Or with me. Oh, we did all sorts of little things together. We'd watch movies at home and make dinner together. He was happy when he was with me. I'm telling you, he was fine when he was with me. I couldn't always be with him, though, and I think he started to get depressed when I had to go back to work more. I think maybe that was the beginning of the problem. I went to school online and got my degree. I'm a nurse, and I didn't start working back at the hospital till Jackson's junior year. It's good work, and I love taking care of people. But it kept me away from home, and Jackson had to stay home alone a lot, and he wasn't used to that. And I think it made him angry. Not to have any close friends or a girlfriend, and then not to have his only family at home with him. I think maybe that's where the trouble started. And I'm so sorry. I didn't think, I never thought. He's such a smart boy. He's just troubled socially, and I just never thought he'd ever do something like this. I was working late at the hospital one night, and around midnight this girl comes running in, and she's all beat up around the face, and her clothes are a mess, and her neck, well, that was the worst part. She's got these two red lines around her neck like she's been choked. And she's gasping and crying, and so I ran around the front of the desk and I said, "Honey, what happened to you?" But she's crying so hard she can't say, and so I asked her again, and then finally she said that she had been raped. Well, my first thought was, I have to contact the police. I have to help this girl. And so I asked her, I said, "Who did this to you? What is his name?" And then she said, "Jackson Linwood." I don't know what happened after that. I think I may have fainted. But when I woke up, the police were there, and they were asking me all sorts of questions like, had Jackson ever been violent towards me, or did he have a girlfriend, or did I know where he was that night or the night before? And I said, no, they had the wrong boy. That's all that this was, just a big misunderstanding. Well, this poor girl must have known Jackson from school and was so traumatized by her ordeal that she mistook my son for her attacker. That's all that this was. But then they said that they had Jackson in custody and that he admitted to doing that awful thing to that girl. And two others earlier in the week. And all I wanted to do was to see my baby, because my Jackson would have never done anything like this. I never taught Jackson that much about sex. I never taught him about the birds and the bees. It's my fault. He had to go and learn all that terrible stuff on the internet. It's my fault. He was so repressed. It should be me they have locked up, not him, not my baby. I didn't believe it until they had the DNA evidence. And they put him away. People around here have been saying that they thought Jackson was crazy, but the court psychologist, though, he didn't think that Jackson was crazy per se, but that his clinical depression indicates a chemical imbalance which, combined with his need to rebel from an overbearing home life, caused a psychotic break at the time which the attacks occurred. Just a bunch of fancy words that ultimately mean I smothered my son. I loved him so much he just couldn't stand it anymore. Small town, so news travels, and well, according to popular opinion, I'm now the mother of a monster. But that's not the son I raised. I raised my son to be loving towards women. I know I did, because he loved me. Look, I don't know what was going on through his head, but all I know is that all I did was be his mother, because that is my job. I had to sentence him as an adult because, you see, he's 18 now. But I still visit him as often as I can. Jackson will be almost 50 by the time he gets out. I don't like to think of him all alone in a cell somewhere. He needs someone, my Jackson. And when I'm dead and gone, he'll be all alone. Well, I'm on my way to visit Jackson right now, but Charlotte Porters already knew that. Small town, so news travels. Look, I'm sure y'all are just lovely people and just trying to do your jobs, but after today, I just have to ask. just leave us alone. Just leave my son alone. He is sick and he is a child just like anybody else is. When I see Jackson today, I'm going to ask him if he's sorry for what he's done, and well, I think he'll say that he is. I hope he'll say that he is. He was always such a nice boy.
How long did you work on that piece, and how many changes did it go through from the beginning of the season to the end of the season?
So many changes. I found this piece probably the second week into the season.
Which started when?
Which started in the beginning of September, I think, is when I found the piece. Will Swango was at his desk, and he found this piece, and he read the description. I said, "Oh, it's mine," and I just fell in love with it ever since. We've made countless changes. We've worked for 45 minutes before on the first 3 lines, many, many times, and in fact, just before sectionals, we totally changed the ending, and we call it New Martha.
That's New okay.
Yeah, that's New Martha.
They did a Martha thing before the show started,
Yes.
and I'm going, okay, this will explain itself later, but great.
Hashtag Team Martha.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, she's performing that on Saturdays in a room with 7 or 8 other competitors also doing something similar. But there's a 1, 2, 3, mostly single judged?
Now, it depends. So at most regular season tournaments, yes, you only have 1 judge per room. However, once you get into the postseason, like sectionals and districts and state, you start getting into a place where you're going to have 2, maybe 3, and I think in finals you had 7 judges total judging your performance. And so that really kind of eliminates the bias once you get to that point, because, you know, what they actually do at the state level is in the final round, they cut your high score and your low score in the final round, because that eliminates the judge's preference, and they look at the middle scores and say, okay, what did most judges think about them? Because, you know, there is something to be said about, did you like the content? And that's not what you're supposed to judge them on necessarily.
Correct.
And so if somebody was really not digging the content and somebody completely loved the content, you would eliminate the high and low score and look at the 5 middle scores and say, here's the cumulative of what they thought of her. And
Her
so,
performance wouldn't be judged on content. What is it supposed to be judged on? What are they supposed to be looking for?
okay, so it's really hard to completely eliminate content from judgments. There is something to be said about choosing a piece of literary merit, and that's actually labeled specifically in the national rules, that literary merit should be rewarded. But what they're mostly looking at, especially in interpretation with her, was, I like to call it believability. Do you believe the character that they're trying to portray? If you do not believe it, then they can't necessarily, you know, give you a great score about it. So you're looking for things like enunciation, pronunciation, eye contact, and one of the more important, but I think under-stressed portions of a speech is the timing. The timing at which a line is delivered, and the timing at which a sentence is broken up by cadence. And so looking at something, and I may watch Jenna's piece, and like she said, we go 45 minutes in the first 3 lines. I say, Jenna, hold on a second. I want you to read that line this way. I want you to put a pause on that second word. And then she does, and I'm like, okay, that was better, but not quite. And then she'll get it, and I'll say, I'm not satisfied, do it like 3 times in a row or something. And then we'll pick up on those little cues. Like, you know, there are certain things, like a line being delivered a specific way, as opposed to it being delivered a specific way. There's a difference in the way that we receive that information. And so that's where we get into the really small intricacies about what makes a sectional final piece and what makes a state final piece.
And Jenna's worked really hard this year on authentically inhabiting her characters and making them believable. And I'm really proud of her. She's worked really hard this year on just feeling what that feels like, what Martha must have felt and what that must have been like to go through, and to sort of sincerely inhabit that character is important as well. And Jenna's very good at that.
And for Jenna too, just another brag on her as a performer. I came in, and Steph can remember, as a student teacher at Richmond High School, and I watched her and I saw her perform, and I realized that this girl had potential, and I just needed to tap into that. And last year, I really saw with one piece that she did last year, she performed in 2, but we worked on one countless times, countless hours. And once she got that down, I was able to say, okay, she gets it. And then this year, we were able to transfer that into 2 different pieces, and to see that she could take that up a notch, that she received that information last year, but could do it now on 2 different events instead of just one really well. And you know, as we may have stated already, but she was a semi-finalist with the piece she just performed, and then you'll get to see her state final piece later on in the show. And I'm so proud of every one of my students, but I have not made it it's not been a secret that Jenna is one of the students I'm most proud of on the team because of the amazing amount of time that she spent after practice, even wanting me to stay and just coach this. She wanted to get it just right, and I was so proud to see her name as a semifinalist and a finalist this year.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, speaking with coaches and some of the students from the Richmond High School speech team. 10th grader, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Justice Lewis is going to perform for us. Your competition piece is what?
It's a poetry program.
It's a poetry program, okay. Did you bring all of these together? Is this a combination of work? How does it work?
This is a complete Justice Lewis masterpiece. I tried to kind of coach with poetry specifically. I try to look for some things, but Justice has got it going on in the poetry stuff, and she is very well versed, no pun intended, in poetry. And so when she found these pieces she wanted to do, I'm just kind of letting her. I kind of helped with the cutting and the, like I said before, the intricacies of the piece. But in terms of finding it, you really want to get to the students to the point where they know how to find a good piece. And so last year, we found a piece for Justice. This year, Justice found this piece entirely on her own. And
The night before our first meet, might I add.
the night before our first meet.
No.
Yes.
Our home meet, yeah.
Justice, you have the stage.
Just because I own slaves doesn't mean I'm racist. I don't even see color. You're racist for being slaves. My closest friends are house Negroes. Look, I didn't ask to have all this cotton. It's not my fault all the cotton is profitable. Don't blame me for something my grandfather's grandfather planted. And if cotton is so bad, why are you wearing it? Don't act innocent. In America, stars and stripes are meant to represent freedom, but to many of us it can represent oppression and the history of a nation that was built upon, well, thievery. Others would say it's not so crystal clear. In the poems All Lives Matter 1800s edition and White History Month by Anthony McPherson, hashtag Stay Woke by Miriam Harris, and A Black Thing by Nikita Oliver, these young poets have written their thoughts on what it's like to be black in today's society, in America in particular. A poetry program. How appropriate for a black girl. This is the fabric of all our lives. You know, it really shines my shoes. A girl in my class notices the color of my shoes matches the color of my shirt and asked, is it a black thing to match the color of your shoes to your shirts? If that wasn't bad enough, she adds, I did teach for America in Philadelphia, in the hood with mostly black kids. I noticed that matching was a big deal. Now I know we tell people there are no stupid questions, but when will we stop telling them to think before they speak? But no matter, she did ask, so we should give her an answer. And it only gets worse the longer I scroll through my timeline, finding myself offended in 140 characters or less. They uplift themselves and break women down in one fell swoop. This misogynistic manifesto given to us by masked men hiding behind the guise of social justice. Every now and then, I find myself in the desolate wasteland that is Black Twitter. There's a sea of strong black men with coiled locks, cowrie shells, and shaved but a soft hand who smile nice and call you queen, but never tell you that the title is conditional. They be like, what's a queen without her king? Hashtag loyalty. A man won't love a woman he can't respect. Hashtag most of you females. Every woman's bedroom has a lock that can be opened through friendship. Hashtag stay woke. A black thing is dying and being resurrected. A hashtag having your life matter more after you are gone, your blood becoming child's play. Finger-painted rituals. Outlines on sidewalks. My accountant hung himself, so we're all struggling with something. Don't judge a book that you're not allowed to read. You can only maintain your queen status if you sleep with them. Get naked only if he's watching. Love your body only 'cause he liked it first. Wear your hair natural, but don't have no nappy hair. Stay loyal. Don't hold him to the same standard and never, ever bruise his ego. There are too many self-proclaimed kings claiming to keep you swerve because they're just too nice. As if we should hand out blue ribbons for decency. The bad boy and Mr. Nice Guy are after the same thing. They just have different methods. He'll protect you from other men so he can keep you to himself. Hashtag cuffing season. A black thing is too many history classes where Crispus Attucks' death starts the revolution, yet we still end up enslaved. It is the autobiography of Malcolm X, outlawed in my public high school because it encourages the wrong kind of rebellion. Stop pretending that the great plight against the black man is black women saying no. It's how our hair is always some kind of rebellion. No matter how curly or straight or locked up, it's always breaking somebody's rules. Black power is for straight black men. Black bodies are important if it belongs to a king. The same in the quote Malcolm X in defense for their misogyny forget that their hero said. The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. While it's important that we reblog and retweet these are Martins, you must not forget Renisha McBride. This is a war, and we are being raged on, all of us, yet black women still become the enemy. A black thing is my last name. So attached to the plantation it comes from, every time I say it, it feels like cotton coming from my mouth. It is this cotton mouth stuff full, this dirty little phrase. You must never say white privilege. White privilege. Equality does not come one gender at a time. Black women aren't your stepping stone to liberation. Stop trapping women under your feet and then wondering where all the queens are. When you disrespect black women, you cut your roots at the source. Hashtag I'm still a queen without you. Hashtag stay woke. My house is like 2 stories tops. The real slave masters live in mansions. I'm a slave like you. Only through love and working together can we get our emancipation. Free the people, how about we the people? Black lives matter, how about all lives matter? Stacey Dash says we should eliminate Black History Month because if it were the other way around, we would be, and I quote, up in arms. I say, if you let us put our hands down without shooting us, we will happily give you your very own White History Month for the entire month of March or April. And nigga isn't picky. We will embed Eurocentric brilliance into the bottom of our subconscious like all the time, like always, like history class. The black thing is unlearning cotton. It's skipping class the day they discuss affirmative action. It's being told that my full ride merit-based scholarship is really just an undercover minority fund. It's scary how a hand up, even when you earned it, can quickly become a nuisance. You did not deserve. A black thing is, it's making myself digestible for their hounds. It's how my feet instinctively know how to run, how to shuck, how to jive, all at the same time. It's being tired of shucking and jiving. It's dancing. It's how they imitate the dancing, yet never understanding the depth of hip struggle and joy from which our dancing comes. If referring to it as already business as usual as White History Month is literally all it will take for y'all to stop killing us. I am 100. I am 92% for it. In fact, in the spirit of us all being equal, I'm willing to make May White History Month Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. Actually, time to learn white history facts such as the slave master is the original deadbeat dad. In fact, in the spirit of harmony, I'm willing to make June White Feelings Matter Month, where we will not mourn our dead or express our fears of being next. No, we will remain silent and just pour out white tears for the fallen. July is White Entertainment Television Month, where you will get your very own WET simply by making the NBC peacock and giving it cornrows. August is NAAWP Month, the National Association for the Advancement of White People. Like Europe, or America, or Trump International, or the time you changed Jesus Christ's complexion. September is MLK would have agreed with me month. October is we killed MLK because he would have agreed with me month. Who, me? Yes, you. Who less than an hour ago said, I don't see color, yet notices the color of my shoes, matches the color of my shirt, and ties us to a thing that black people supposedly do, but a black thing is really just a person objectified, right? Because after all, objects are things, people are not things. She stares at me, eyes as big as the full moon, begging for an answer as simple as her question. So I try to give her something she could swallow. Lastly, January is Cracker Month. You go too far. Fine, we'll call it Becky Month. That is somehow worse. For Cracker, Becky, Cracker Month, we will memorialize all the white people who are lynched while black mobs gathered around to laugh at the bodies and eat saltines. Moment of silence. In the arms of the angel, fly away. Hashtag never forget that stuff that never happened. So remember, when January 31st backhands midnight and God pulls up the first February sunrise like a Pantherian fist, and our history roars, it's an if you roar, you can have 28 seats. You can learn 28 things, or you can just shut up.
And you were shy when?
Tell about last year.
Okay. Nice job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We said an hour was going to move quickly. We're going to move quickly. I know Chitra has to grab her stuff, so we're going to let you talk a little bit about what a judge is looking for as she sets up. We can go ahead and, it's okay. What a judge is looking for in this particular event.
So this particular event, because Justice had chosen to do multiple poems from multiple different authors and do multiple different voices, you're looking for things like, are the characters clear? Is the message is the message clear that she's trying to deliver? Is she enunciating once again with interpretation? Then again, you are looking, even though content's not supposed to be the main thing, you do kind of look at, did they choose quality poems that all kind of ran together around that similar topic? And so, in an event like poetry, again, you're still looking for the believability of each character if they choose to do multiple characters. Do you believe the passion that they're having in the delivery, as well as looking at the natural speech things like gestures, enunciation, eye contact, all of those things that are speechy, along with the poetic devices.
Okay. Chitra is about to perform, and we've got about 10 minutes left to go.
Okay.
Believe it or not, this has moved along pretty quickly. The event that you have, Chitra, is?
Informative.
Okay. And this has done very well for you. How did you? How was your season, as it were?
Enjoyable. I was actually did not have this until December. So our speech season normally starts August, September. I did not do this. I did another event, my favorite event, which I was a state finalist in, which is impromptu. But this event I pulled out in January, and it did really well. It got first at, I think, almost every meet except one. And I took it to sectionals. I was sectional champion. And I took it to state, and I was a semifinalist. And I took it to districts, and I was the district champion, and that qualified me for nationals.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have the stage.
Okay, thank you. There are times in life when we realize the ignorance of our fellow man. One such occasion for me happened last year in IT class when my period came early because Mother Nature has a personal vendetta against me. I went up to the teacher to ask for a pass to the nurse. When she loudly insisted on knowing why, I was forced to respond that I need to get a pad because my period had started. To which one boy in the back asked, "Can't you just hold it?" also known as Leak Week, Shark Week, Not the Father Week, That Time of the Month, On Flow, Niagara Falls of Blood, Satan's Waterfall, The Elevator from The Shining, Carrie at the Prom, Part in the Red Sea, Red Sails and Sunset, The Invasion of Japan, Ride of the Cotton Pony, Birthing a Blood Diamond, and Your Period. The menstrual cycle is one of the most maligned, misunderstood, and ignored biological functions of the human body. Researcher William Millar defines a menstrual taboo as any societal contempt of menstruation. So today, let's follow the flow to find out where these taboos come from. Start seeing red as we go around the world to see what these taboos look like. And lastly, soak up some of the implications of this societal contempt. So why do we dread the red, so to say? Well, according to a 1990 study, The Issue of Blood, The Politics of Menstruation, it mostly has to do with tradition and misinformation. Most religions consider menstruation to be ritually unclean, and certainly something that's inappropriate to discuss with others. In ancient Rome, a popular naturalist by the name of Pliny the Elder claimed that menstruation caused food to become poisonous, crops to wither, and iron to rust. In fact, according to the book Sexualities and the World's Religions, most older European cultures considered menstrual blood to be poisonous, believing it caused hysteria. In Hinduism, Islam, and Judaism, women on their periods traditionally can't participate in religious ceremonies or touch certain items, as you can see here. And according to the Wingard Institute for Catholic Research, in Christianity, the impurity of menstruation is cited as a reason women cannot become priests. Now, these traditions created an overarching societal discomfort with menstruation, which is carried through to our modern day. A study of 90,000 women conducted by the International Women's Health Coalition found that only 31% of American women are comfortable discussing their menstruation with male members of their family. Now, this reluctance to discuss the specifics of menstruation with men has led to several myths, which still persist today and contribute to the taboo. For example, that women are irrational, hormone-controlled messes on their periods, aka PMS. Yes, the infamous premenstrual syndrome causes such symptoms as mood swings, food cravings, stomach upsets, and fatigue. In fact, if you were to believe popular opinion, all women are crazy on their periods. But in real life, these symptoms vary widely from person to person, and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists estimates that only about 3 to 8% of people with PMS experience the most severe forms. There are also some stranger myths, such as women can choose when to bleed, and yes, that we can just hold it, which, if you don't know, are both wrong. While these might seem funny, these traditions and myths created an overarching societal discomfort and even contempt of menstruation. Ultimately, a period taboo. So now that we've seen where these taboos come from, let's talk about what they look like. Periods weren't always so taboo. In ancient and matrilineal societies, like the Native American tribes of California, it was considered a sacred time of rest for women. However, these traditions that honored women soon turned into rules that oppressed them. According to the Internet Journal of World Health and Societal Politics, a look at the world's major religions finds that all of them place restrictions on menstruating women. They enforce prohibitions on physical intimacy, cooking, participation in religious ceremonies, and even force women to stay apart from men during this time. And in many rural and/or highly religious parts of the world, these rules are strictly enforced. A Newsweek article published on April 20th, 2016 describes how girls in rural Africa and India are forced to stay locked in their rooms, denied baths and showers, and forced to drop out of school. A study by Nielsen and Plan India found that in rural India, 1 in 5 girls drops out of school when she starts menstruating. And in Africa, 1 in 10 girls misses school every month when she's on her period. In Nepal, some rural families still follow an ancient tradition of chaupadi, banishing girls and women to small shacks, even in the middle of winter. Even in the U.S., tampons and pads are not provided in restrooms. We have to pay for them, and students have to go to a nurse if they need one. It's also worth noting that while I can buy various knickknacks and doodads tax-free around the U.S., from Pop-Tarts in California to barbecue sunflower chips right here in Indiana, in all but 10 states, tampons and pads are taxed as luxury items from 4 to 8%. Now, this tax has been questioned, but it's been mostly unsuccessful, with politicians being mocked as Miss Maxi or Miss Flo if they bring the issue up, proving that menstrual taboos exist even in developed countries. So now that we've seen what these taboos look like, let's discuss some of the implications. There are several overarching effects of period taboos on people who menstruate, including their health, status, and psychological well-being. Because menstruation is talked about, never, there have only been 3 major advances in menstrual technology in the past century or so: pads, tampons, and menstrual cups. Now, these were all hailed as great strides in liberating women. No more soaking up blood with rags or suffering painful cramps. Tampons, created during World War II, when women took up more physically demanding jobs, were especially considered the pinnacle of menstrual technology. However, this discreet and effective way of controlling periods had a sinister side effect. As Chris Boble, president of the Menstrual Cycle Research Association and associate professor of women and gender study at the University of Massachusetts, said, nobody was thinking about safety hazards. They were just grateful to have something that plugged it up, literally. And that's why nobody in 1980 saw the 890 cases of toxic shock syndrome coming. According to the UK National Health Service, polyester and other materials in tampons dried out women's vaginas, creating an ideal environment for the toxin-producing bacteria, Staphylococcus aureus. TSS is now quite rare and is almost never fatal, but it still does happen. More recently, tampon and pad manufacturers were forced to change their production process when it was found to contain a carcinogenic subject, dioxin. The FDA does not require manufacturers to reveal their ingredients, so we know more about the materials in our clothes than what we're putting in the most absorbent part of a woman's body. Menstrual taboos also affect how women are viewed in leadership. Because of the myths surrounding hormones and menstruation, many people consider women unfit to be leaders. Women are taken less seriously, and as such, can't get their voices heard. And in other parts of the world, it's used to keep women as second-class citizens, unable to get a proper education or high-paying job. And lastly, menstrual taboos have deep psychological impacts on the people they affect. As Dr. Chandra Moody, a scientist for the World Health Organization who specialized in adolescence for the past 20 years, said, menstrual taboos are still an extremely important issue because they affect how girls view themselves. Millions of girls don't even know what menstruation is until they get their first period, and then are told to hide away or keep silent. Even in the US, menstruation is used to shame and silence women. An example is when President Donald Trump dismissed anchor Megyn Kelly after a tough interview by saying she had blood coming out of her whatever. This contributes to women staying silent and ensures the survival of the glass ceiling. So while the story of the boy in my IT class is funny, we now know some of the reasons for his confusion. Today, we talked about menstrual taboos, where they come from, what they look like, and lastly, some of the many implications of this societal contempt. You know, menstruation's been around since the dawn of humankind, and it's not going away anytime soon. So I hope this information has piqued your interest and helped you to see beyond the blood. Let me get this out of the way.
Okay, we are closing in, so you've got one more performance, correct?
Yes.
Which is going to come to close to taking us to the end of the show.
Correct.
So, Jenna, go for it.
So, I grew up in a deaf family. My mom is deaf, and my dad is deaf. This usually prompts a lot of questions, and I'm sure that you've got some, so you know what? I'm just going to answer the top 3 questions I get so we can get that out of the way. Yes, I know sign language. I learned how to talk because I'm not deaf. And yes, I'll teach you all the dirty words. When I was 7 years old, my dad moved us to the woods of Texas. One time on a ride back from Galveston Beach, I was riding in the back of a Chevy pickup and my flip-flop just tumbled out of sight. I don't even know how I lost it, but seeing it tumble down the Houston highway made me burst into tears. My dad saw me crying in the rear view, and he would have none of that. So he brought the Chevy to a screeching halt, backed up down the highway, jumped out, and ran across all 4 lanes of traffic. Cars were swerving, screaming, honking. It was mayhem. But my dad, he got that flip-flop, and he raised it like a trophy. Then he ran back, swerving through dodging cars, and he gave it back to me. And he said, "Don't cry, baby girl. He was a superhero. Author Veronica Ross once said, "Sometimes bravery means laying down your life for something bigger, or for someone else." Throughout our lives, we have been taught to commend others for their bravery through terms such as hero and heroine. Author Cambry Cruz describes the sacrifices made by her deaf parent and begs us to make the distinction between selflessness and self-deprivation. A Blind Ear by Cambry Cruz. And he was my dad, and I was his baby girl. He would have done anything for me, including risk his life. But he was also a husband, and not a very good one, according to my mother. After 22 years of marriage, she'd gotten fed up with his spontaneous lifestyle, this wild life of the party, and the financial troubles that came with it. My mom and I shared a 2-bedroom apartment, and my dad had some crappy studio down the street. Now, I knew all about their money troubles because as a child of deaf adults, or a CODA, I answered the phone, and I interpreted the bill collector's calls. So I knew about this side of their troubles, but I never knew about their fighting. I didn't see them, and I didn't hear them because they fought behind closed doors, but one night I did see them fight. It was August 15th, and something woke me up. This as a CODA should have been a signal that something was not right. One of the false assumptions about deaf people is that they're quiet. No, they are obnoxiously loud. They're always burping and slamming cabinets and banging pots and pans. They have no regulation, it sounds. But as a CODA, you just learn to tune out the sounds of everyday life, but this night, something woke me up. I saw that the lights were on in my mom's bedroom, and so I peered in. And I see her lying on the floor. My dad is straddling her. His arm is cocked back, ready to punch, but seeing me in the door made my mom shift her head, and in that split second, my dad hit the floor. He missed her face by a fraction of an inch, and if I hadn't been standing in the doorway, he surely would have hit her. They scrambled to their feet, and everyone's screaming and crying, and my dad is threatening to kill her and then to kill himself, and I've never seen my dad be violent towards my mom. He's never been violent towards me. He's never even spanked me. I race to my bedroom and I start to dial 911, but my first instinct is to protect my dad because, you see, in the deaf community, stories are often circulated about how the police would show up and command a deaf man to stop or to drop his weapon or to put his hands up, and the deaf man didn't know that he was being yelled at, obviously, and then he was shot dead. And so my first thought to the operator was, please make sure that the cops know that my dad is deaf, but I'll be here. I'll take care of it. When the cops arrive, they don't care what I've witnessed. All they really wanted to know was the status of my parents' relationship. Were they still married? Well, technically they were still married, but they were separated. My dad's name wasn't even on the lease. Well, that didn't matter. Did he have any personal belongings here? Well, yeah, he had a couple of clothes hanging in the closet and some toiletries. Well, that gave him a right to be here. The laws were different back then, and what happened behind a family's closed doors was their own business. So finally, after 20 minutes of negotiating, my dad finally says, okay, I'll go. And the cops, they assure me that they'll follow him out and make sure he's out of harm's way, even though he was clearly blitzed and in no condition to drive. And then they were gone. And my mom and I, we didn't even hug. We were just shocked, stunned, I guess. And then we just went back to our bedrooms. I'm trying to fall asleep, and then that's when I hear this tremendous crash. I leap out of bed, and I see my dad charging down the hallway straight at me, and in one body slam, he's knocked the front door completely off its hinges. I race for the phone that was sitting on my bed, and I start to dial 911, but my dad's already reached me. He grabs the phone and rips it right out of the wall. He pushes us into the dining room and makes us sit there while he interrogates my mother about who she's sleeping with. And I can't hear them fight, obviously, so I just close my eyes. This, I guess, is a way to maintain some dignity for my mom, but also because I don't want to know these details of my parents' relationship. Hours pass and my mother is not giving my father any emotion. She's just a blank slate. And then this starts to get on my dad's nerves to the point where he decides to turn his attention to me. He wants to make sure that I know what a horrible human being she is and what a horrible wife she is. And he starts to graphically describe her sex life to me. Your mother is an SLUT. And I'm searching his face for a sign of who is this person? Where is my dad? And he's searching my face for a sign that I'm on his side, and I wasn't. This made him snap. He grabs my mother by the neck and in one move slams her against the wall and starts choking her to death. Her heels are digging into the wall and she's trying to pull herself up, and I think, okay, what can I do? I can grab the phone. If I can just grab one finger and bend it backwards or left to let go from the pain. So I just have to focus if I can get one finger around his finger. I couldn't. He was too strong. My mom's face is turning purple and her eyes are bugged out, and that vein on her forehead is fat, and so I changed tactics. He's so focused on my mom's eyes that I get right in between them and I say, look at me! It's Cambry, it's me, your baby girl, your baby girl. And his eyes start to well with tears and I see that it's working, so I say it again, it's me. It's Cambry, your baby girl, your baby girl. And then he just lets her go. And so I ran for the phone and I start to dial 911. I hear the operator say, what's your emergency? But my dad has already reached me. He grabs the phone in his hands and slams it into the cradle, then grabs my mother by the neck and in one move has a knife against her throat. But since he's deaf, he doesn't know that the whole time the phone is ringing, 911 had called back. And so I made a choice. I ran for the phone and I screamed, he's back! And in that instant, seeing my mouth moving, my dad knew it was done. He dropped the knife and tried to make everything look like it was in order again, and the cops, well, they were there in an instant. Well, one officer is tending to my mother, the other one asks me to interpret my father's Miranda rights. So I interpret them. You have the right to remain silent. And then they just left, me and my mom there, to pick up the pieces. For a variety of reasons, my mother didn't press charges, and because the laws being what they were, then my father was never really charged with anything too serious. He got 4 years probation. Over time, I discovered that my father had been a cheat from day one. He cheated on my mom the day they were married, and for the whole first year of their marriage, too. But because she used to make him fight behind closed doors where I couldn't hear and I couldn't see, I didn't know these things. And so she had given me this superhero of a dad. Crazy memories of just this wild, carefree father. And that's the father I have to choose to remember. The father who would rescue my flip-flop. Because he thought it meant something to me.
Ladies, thank you. This is going to seem incredibly rude, but they've told me we are under 1 minute to go. Chitra, Justice, Jenna, thank you all very much. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you performing for us and for giving us a glimpse of what speech at Richmond High School is about. Ronnie, Stephanie, thank you for working with them. It is a long season, and we appreciate you being here and spreading this information. We're taking next week off. We'll have a replay of our show for construction. Eric Van Vliet will be host in 2 weeks. If you need to see a replay of this show, it will be available on our video on demand site, WGTV Online. It will also re-air beginning at 10:30 tonight. Have a good night. This broadcast of In Focus has been made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hughes, host of The Third Sector. Join me this month. My guests are Dana Weigel with Safety Village.
And we teach kids safety, generally kindergarten kids.
And Sue Routson with the Diplomas program.
The key to their success is finishing high school.
The
Third Sector airs Thursdays at 8:30 on WETV, Channel 20.